Right. So, middle of the triple header, second race out of the three. This is Bahrain 2025. Next, we have Saudi Arabia. Will that be more of the same? We don't know. It's another DRS circuit with some long straights. So, maybe more of the same next week. We'll see. Only time will tell. But let's not jump the gun. Let's focus on what happened this morning. First off, congratulations to Piastri. Fantastic drive. I There are a couple of things I've been saying now that I think Norris needs to worry. I think based on the pace of the McLaren relative to the other cars, Norris really just needs to feel focused on his teammate because that's his biggest threat. I mean, there's right now Red Bull is nowhere. Mercedes is fast, but not necessarily going to be fast on all the tracks. I think that Norris, without a doubt, his biggest threat to winning a drivers' championship this year is gonna be from his teammate Piastri in the car next to him in the pit bay. Today proved that Piastri drove superbly, didn't make any mistakes. Um, I'm almost willing to bet that he could have pushed harder if he needed to. I doubt that what we saw today was the maximum that Piastri could extract from that car. I actually think he had more speed than he. I think he just drove enough to control the race. Um, on the surface of it, I mean, what third is great. It's a good result. Great for the team, extending their lead in the constructors championship, and still a good result for Norris. But let's be honest, it wasn't a great race. Norris has the fastest car. There's no question that the McLaren is the dominant car. I mean, and he made a good. The thing is, he screwed up qualifying royally, obviously. However, his recovery at the start was brilliant. Passing out, I mean, his start was just like spot on, and yet he ruins it by that stupid roll forward. I have seen that particular offense where you remember now, it's not like he comes to a dead stop and it's just a little bit over the line. He actually stopped within his box and then made a roll forward and then stop across the line. I've seen other people get bigger penalties than 5 seconds for that. I can't remember specific instances, but recently I'm sure I've seen some 10-second penalties for that. So I think he got off really lucky with just a 5 second penalty. But nevertheless, that's 5 seconds squandered. Okay. Um Norris is just a conundrum right now. You have to wonder if mentally he's really ready for this top level here. Because he runs good. He made a fantastic pass on Leclerc eventually, but screwed up his attempts before. I mean, running wide, locking up the brakes. Just he makes mistakes. The length of time that he spent behind Leclerc with the car that he has, I just don't get it. It's like you can see that he has speed, but here he I don't know. I'm concerned that he just does not have the mental fortitude necessary. When you look at Piastri, how Piastri is like ice water on trim veins, cool, calm, collected. Let's not forget this is Piastri's second year in F1. Piastri is just getting over being a rookie, right? Last year, Piastri, I think Norris out qualified him something like what 19-3 or something like that. So Piastri is not. This is Piastri is just finding his footing, and yet look how good he is now. So I think Norris has a serious problem and needs to get his act together mentally. He don't have a problem on the track. Norris can drive, but mentally he's weak, very weak. Um, Mercedes. I said I think either the last race or the one before that I think Mercedes is the second fastest team. I see no reason to change my mind. The car is fast. I think The putting Russell on the soft tire at the end was risky, and you could see that he was losing time, and I mean, he came on a lot of pressure right at the end. But and also with some mechanical and potentially electrical and mechanical issues as well, because the steering was malfunctioning. He lost the display. Then I think at one point he was lost the ability to change gears. I mean, they did some default settings and got over that, but he didn't have a display on his steering wheel, which can mess with a driver. And he came under massive and sustained and intense pressure from Norris, and he withstood it. I thought it was a superb drive from Russell. I think Antonelli also drove very well. I don't think the results are reflective of his efforts. I think he got very unlucky in the pit stops. I think the team strategy wasn't the best. I think he got put into when he came back out in the pits, he found himself down in a lot of cars in traffic. I think the safety car also put him at a bit of a disadvantage because he had pitted shortly before. At the end of the day, I think he's quick. He made a lot of good on track passes, and he's a damn good driver. That kid is going places. He can drive. But Mercedes definitely is number two at the moment. I don't see Ferrari and Red Bull having an answer for them in the near future. We'll see what happens when they start the European rounds and the wings, the flexi wing thing gets eliminated, because I had posted something on Facebook recently, a chart that shows the amount of centimeters that the wings are flexing, and Mercedes wing is actually flexing even more than McLaren's. So if Mercedes and McLaren's wings they're forced to alter them in Spain, then we may see a little different result. But for now, Mercedes is second clearly. Now, having said that, Red Bull is so far behind the curve at this point that I don't think slowing down McLaren or Mercedes on by a small amount is gonna help Red Bull. Red Bull needs some major revisions. I don't know what's going on there at the factory. I mean, obviously New isn't there, but New isn't at a lot of other teams either, and they're getting it right. Look at McLaren, case in point. So the reality is Red Bull is not getting it right. And then the pit stops today, what is going on? I mean, the lights, okay, you can have a malfunction, I understand that. But then you bring Sonoda in immediately after, and you don't change the light system. You either don't have a backup light to use because the light isn't working, just to switch between red and green so the driver knows when the car comes down off the jack that he can move. The light is still red and holding him. He's sitting there waiting, and then he realizes, oh shit, the light is not working, and then he goes. It immediately then happens to Sonoda after it happened to Verstappen. Surely, if the light is not working, you must have a backup one. And if you don't have a backup one, which is ridiculous, but let's say you don't, for whatever reason, then you use the old-fashioned, what we used to call lollipop, man. You have a stick, and you have one side of it red and one side of it green on the end of the stick, a little round sign that looks like a lollipop. And you stick it out in front of the driver, and you flip it, bam, red, green. So the driver can have a visual indicator. That's simple. That's nothing complicated. So, I don't understand what they did there. Then, the second pit stop. Now, that was even worse. The tire got stuck. Okay, that can happen. A wheel can get stuck. But it's uncharacteristic. For two to happen in a row, I think is bad. Probably unrelated, because the light had nothing to do with the rim sticking or the wheel not sticking or whatever it was that jam. But still, it's a bad omen, right? And it certainly didn't help. I mean, when Verstappen rejoined the second time after the second pit stop, he was dead last. That's pretty wild. I mean, he came out 20th. That is insane. So Red Bull has some major, and I mean major work to do. That Verstappen managed to bring himself back up to sixth is actually pretty impressive. Which, he is what he is. He's gonna get the best out of a bad situation, no matter what. I mean, that last lap pass on Gasly was masterful. He was persistent. He wore him down, and he made the pass, even though the car was clearly crap. So without a doubt, Red Bull has a lot of homework to do. Can they catch up? I have my doubts. Not impossible, but I have my doubts. Um, I'm gonna. I do because of some. This race was. I wouldn't. It wasn't that great race per se, but it had a lot of things happening. Some interesting things as well. I would say that Haas. I mean, as much as I thought Hamilton made a pretty good drive, I mean, he didn't. Leclerc was clearly faster than him and ended up finishing a fair ways ahead of him. But nonetheless, Hamilton did a good drive. But when you talk about driver of the day, what about Beerman? What would you say about Haas? Beerman started 20th and finished 10th, right? Ocon in the points, I think he was 8th. That's 2 cars in the points for Haas. That's impressive by any standard. That's pretty good, right? Alpine wasn't bad either. Gasly drove superbly. Decent in the midfield. Can't complain. I was disappointed in Hajar. Let's see. The stake, I just don't expect much from them. Hulkenberg wasn't bad. Bortoleto couldn't get a handle on stuff. Hajar wasn't great. Duan wasn't bad, but honestly, I'm beginning to see. I think the beginning of the end of Duan. Flavio Briatore is not a. Flavio Briatore makes Christian Horner look like a choir boy. Okay, let's be clear about that. For the younger viewers who may not know who Briatore is, do some reading on him. He is not at all going to tolerate that. So we'll see. Duan going to have to start producing results and in short order too. But time will tell on that one. I want to single out Russell's drive though. I'm gonna go back a little. I know I kind of all over the place because because I mentioned Beerman and Leclerc and Hamilton. I want to particularly mention Russell drove spectacularly well. I mean, he really, really, really drove spectacularly well, and he's not one of my favorite guys by far. But I give credit where credit is due. Russell drove spectacularly well. Highlights for me of this race, I think, was Piastri just being dominant, absolutely in control. Norris somewhat dropping the ball but recovering. Ferrari making the best of a bad situation. Mercedes definitely putting themselves, firmly in second. And Red Bull, I don't want to say last because that would be foolish to count them out. But Red Bull on the back foot badly. What would I say? Aston Martin. What's going on there? They seem lost. I think you can't help but think they're almost just in autopilot mode until Newey produces something for them next year. Because clearly they're going nowhere with this car. As I said, overall, decent, interesting race. Good midfield action, couple exciting things. Sainz and Sonoda in the points. Not bad. Kind of scrappy kind of race. But at the end of the day, 2 Red Bulls in the points. When is the last time that has happened? When is the last time Red Bull had a second driver that could put the car up into the points to finish along with Verstappen to help a little with the constructors? Bodes well for him. We'll see if he makes progress. And he actually drove pretty decently. A little ragged with Sainz a couple times, but Sainz also was not really on form. So, we'll see. Yeah, that's about it. Simple review, short, a bit, as I said, a bit all over the place, and I apologize for that. But I try to just keep these things more like conversational than like I'm kind of being a race commentator, because that's not what I want. I want it to be more just kind of a discussion on bouncing stuff, my views off of on different things. So yeah, let's bring on Saudi Arabia and see what happens. I think the fight with the McLaren between the two McLaren teammates is gonna be interesting. I I can see where things are gonna become contentious there. That's my prediction. I think that situation is gonna get real interesting real quick. But we'll see.